And we're going to stay on this story. For more reaction, our Chase team has reached David Laufman in Vienna, Virginia. He is a former chief of counterintelligence and export control section at the U.S. Department of Justice. He is now a partner with the law firm Wigan and Dana. Great to have you on the program, David. I want to know what your thoughts are, your reaction to this new move, this breaking news about Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou appearing virtually in court in an hour.
Well, look, this is an extraordinary development and somewhat of a departure from Department of Justice's normal practices. It is customary for the Justice Department to enter into deferred prosecution agreements with corporations. It's rare for them to enter into a DPA with an individual, and it just signifies the significance of this case in the broader context of U.S. foreign policy and national security interests, our relationship with Canada, our relationship with China, and I would be surprised if whatever happens today in the courtroom is not part of a multilateral understanding to be implemented if all goes well today.
And that multilateral understanding, do you think it started with that meeting between Xi Jinping and your U.S. President Biden?
You know, it's hard to say. I would expect there have been conversations taking place below the radar of the news media for many months between the United States and China, United States and Canada. I mean, look, in some respects, this sets a kind of a dangerous precedent where, you know, hostage taking by a foreign power here has resulted in the at least the Department of Justice, you know, caving in to demands made by the Chinese government. She is going to plead guilty to something today. The devil will be in the details of what precisely she says under oath, what admissions she makes to culpability for the charges that were brought. I would expect the Department of Justice to want to be in a position procedurally where it can use admissions under oath that she makes against Huawei itself in the corporate prosecution, which will remain ongoing after today. But we'll have to see what exactly she admits to.
And we'll all certainly be watching to not only that plea of guilty, what the fine will be, but when you talk about caving in, and those were your words, I'm wondering if China looks at releasing our two Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, with the same kind of words. Would they assume the optics of caving in releasing them?
You know, the whole thing was a sham over there in the first place, so I would expect they'll come up with some, you know, pretext propaganda-like statement to justify the release of people that they have, quote-unquote, charged with criminal offenses. That will all fall into place in due time, I expect, in connection with her guilty plea today and eventually her return to China.
How much of all of this is about saving face? I'd hate to think we're in this position because of that.
Well, you know, I think the Chinese want to come away from whatever happens today in the courtroom with some statement of admission by Ms. Meng that they can still dispute with respect to acceptance of responsibility. What she says may be the type of language that both sides can point to and claim victory. We'll just have to see precisely what words she utters, but I am certain that the Department of Justice would insist on language that they can point to as statements of admission that can be used against Huawei in the continuing prosecution against the Huawei Corporation.
David, I've been speaking with people from the Munk School of Global Affairs. I've also been speaking with an immigration lawyer here in Canada. Different opinions there. One of them said, really, the question now is how does Canada and the United States move forward in its relations with China? The immigration lawyer I was talking to said, you know, I said, do you put the gloves on or take them off? And he said, well, you show the gloves, but you don't put them on. How would you describe the relationship that Canada and the U.S. need to have with China going forward, keeping in mind what you said about hostage taking or holding countries hostage?
Look, the United States and Canada are close partners. We are brothers in arms when it comes to national security interests. We are going to continue, both of us, to have an adversarial relationship with China, but to the extent that we can, you know, remove an irritant, a further irritant in that relationship that enables us to accomplish broader goals, whether it's on climate change or trade, you know, then a case could be made that the resolution of this criminal case is in the net national interests of both Canada and the United States. And that's what we hope to accomplish today.
Final question for you, David. You talk about Canada and the United States being brothers in arms. Why weren't you there earlier? Why weren't you there 1,000 days ago when these two gentlemen were taken? You called it yourself a sham, and yet it took this much time for the United States to decide it is going to resolve these issues.
Look, there's a long evolution to how these cases are resolved. The Justice Department invested a lot of blood and treasure in building out this investigation. I was involved in the early stages of the case. It was a righteous prosecution. Her extradition has been litigated at every stage of the Canadian criminal justice system. She has lost at every stage. There's no really dispute that the prosecution was legitimate on the facts and on the law. But when foreign policy interests collide or intersect with the criminal justice system, it is a complex intersection, and it takes time to troubleshoot.
I appreciate your time, David, and you be well.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
David Laufman in Vienna, Virginia. He is a former chief of counterintelligence and export control section at the U.S. Department of Justice.